The siren screamed behind her before she even saw the lights. Emily Hartman's hands tightened on the wheel, not panic, just reflex. She wasn't speeding, hadn't run a red. The only thing she'd done in the last 10 minutes was leave Riverside General after a double shift that left her leg throbbing worse than usual. But Officer Daniel Cross didn't care about any of that. Within 60 seconds, her medical bag was dumped across the hood of her car, like evidence at a crime scene. Her medications, prescribed, labeled, legal, were lined up like contraband. And when she tried to explain the limp, the tremor in her right hand, the way her body didn't move the way it used to, Cross looked at her like she was lying. "Walk a straight line," he said. She knew right then this wasn't a traffic stop. This was a setup. What Cross didn't know, what nobody on that street corner knew, was that the call Emily made wasn't for a lawyer. It was a signal. And in less than 3 minutes, everything he thought he understood about power was about to be rewritten by people who didn't ask twice. If you want to see how far justice can really go when the wrong person gets stopped, stay with me until the end of this story. Drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this one travels. Emily Hartman had been a nurse for 6 years, but she'd been a soldier for 8 before that. The difference showed in the way she moved, deliberate, economical, like someone who'd learned not to waste motion. Her right leg dragged slightly when she was tired, a souvenir from a convoy accident outside Kandahar that had shattered her femur and severed a nerve bundle. Doctors said she was lucky to keep it all. Lucky. That was the word they used when they meant broken but functional. She'd left the VA hospital in Riverside 3 hours ago after what was supposed to be a routine follow-up. Her prescriptions were updated. Her physical therapy schedule was adjusted. Her life, for the most part, was stable, boring even. She worked night shifts at Riverside General, managed her pain with a rotation of meds that would make a pharmacist wince, and went home to an apartment that smelled like instant coffee and lavender lotion. It wasn't the life she'd imagined at 22 when she signed her contract, but it was hers. The stoplight ahead turned yellow. Emily eased off the gas, letting the car coast to a stop. She was 2 miles from home. The streets were nearly empty, just a few late-night stragglers and the glow of a convenience store sign up ahead. She reached for the water bottle in her cup holder, took a sip, and checked her phone. That's when the lights exploded behind her. Red and blue strobed across her rearview mirror, sharp and sudden. Emily's stomach dropped. She wasn't speeding. She'd signaled. Her registration was current, but her hand still moved automatically. Turn signal on, pull to the curb, engine off, hands on the wheel. She'd done this before. Not often, but enough to know the script. The officer took his time approaching. Emily watched him in the side mirror, tall, broad-shouldered, mid-30s maybe. His hand rested on his belt as he walked, not on his weapon, but close enough to make the point. When he reached her window, he didn't bend down to her eye level. He stood upright, forcing her to crane her neck. License and registration. No greeting, no explanation. Emily nodded. "They're in the glove box. I'm reaching for them now." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. The tremor in her right hand, another gift from the accident, made the motion awkward. She fumbled with the latch, and the officer's posture shifted. "Hands where I can see them." "I'm getting my registration," Emily said, slower now. "It's right here." She pulled the documents free and held them up. The officer took them without a word, his eyes scanning her face like he was looking for something specific. He glanced at the license, then back at her. "You been drinking tonight?" "No." "You sure?" "Yes." He tilted his head. "You're shaking." Emily exhaled through her nose. "I have a nerve condition. It's documented." "That right?" His tone didn't change. "Step out of the car." Her chest tightened. "Can I ask why you pulled me over?" "Step out of the car, ma'am." There it was. The ma'am that wasn't polite. The kind that meant, "I'm not asking anymore." Emily unbuckled her seatbelt and opened the door. The motion took longer than it should have. Her leg didn't cooperate the way it used to, especially after a long shift. She gripped the doorframe and pulled herself upright, feeling the familiar ache flare from her hip to her ankle. Officer Cross, his nameplate said Cross, watched her with an expression that might have been suspicion or might have been contempt. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. "You all right?" he asked, though it didn't sound like concern. I have a service-related injury, Emily said. It affects my mobility. Service-related, Cross repeated, like he was tasting the words. You military? Former. Yeah? He looked her up and down. Doesn't look like it. Emily bit the inside of her cheek. She'd heard that before. She was 5'6", lean but not stocky, and her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail that made her look younger than 34. She didn't fit the image people carried in their heads when they thought soldier, and she'd stopped trying to convince them years ago. Cross gestured toward the front of her car. Put your hands on the hood. Am I under arrest? Not yet. That was supposed to sound reassuring. It didn't. Emily limped to the front of the car and placed her palms flat on the hood. The metal was still warm from the engine. Behind her, she heard Cross opening her car door, rummaging through the interior. She didn't turn around. What's all this? His voice was sharper now. Emily glanced back. He was holding her medical bag, a compact black kit she kept in the passenger seat for emergencies. It had bandages, a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff. Standard nursing gear. I'm a nurse, she said. That's my work bag. Cross unzipped it and started pulling things out. Gauze, alcohol swabs, a small flashlight. Then his hand stopped on the orange pill bottles tucked into the side pocket. And these? Prescriptions. He held one up to the streetlight, squinting at the label. Oxycodone, gabapentin, cyclobenzaprine. He looked at her. That's a lot of pills. They're prescribed, Emily said. You can call my doctor if you want. I might. He set the bottles on the hood next to her hands, lining them up like evidence. Emily's pulse kicked up a notch. This wasn't standard procedure. This was something else. Cross circled around to face her. You mind telling me where you're coming from tonight? The VA hospital. What for? Follow-up appointment. For what? Emily hesitated. She didn't owe him her medical history, but refusing to answer would only make things worse. Chronic pain management, she said, related to my injury. Uh-huh. Cross folded his arms. And you drove yourself? Yes. On all these meds. They're not narcotics, Emily said, though that wasn't entirely true. The oxycodone was, but it was low dose and she hadn't taken it in 6 hours. I'm fine to drive. Cross didn't look convinced. He turned back to the pill bottles, picking up each one and reading the labels again like he was looking for a mistake. Emily's leg was starting to cramp from standing still too long. She shifted her weight and immediately regretted it. Stay still, Cross snapped. My leg. I said stay still. A car passed on the opposite side of the road, slowing down as the driver rubbernecked. Emily caught a glimpse of a phone held up to the window. Great. Now there'd be a video. Cross must have noticed too because his jaw tightened. You got any weapons in the car? No. You sure? Yes. Mind if I check? It wasn't really a question. Emily nodded, knowing that refusing would only escalate things. Cross walked back to her car and leaned inside, his hands moving through the glove box, under the seats, in the door pockets. He pulled out a tire iron from the trunk and held it up like it meant something. This? It's a tire iron, Emily said flatly. For changing tires. Cross tossed it back into the trunk with a metallic clang. He wasn't finding anything because there was nothing to find, and that seemed to irritate him more than if he'd actually discovered something. He came back around to the front of the car, hands on his hips. I'm going to need you to walk a straight line for me. Emily's stomach dropped. Why? Because I'm asking you to. She stared at him. This was the trap. She knew it. If she tried to walk, her leg would give out halfway through, and he'd use it as proof she was impaired. If she refused, he'd arrest her for noncompliance. I have a documented mobility issue, Emily said carefully. I can't walk a straight line. Not because I'm impaired, but because my leg doesn't work that way. Then show me the documentation. It's in my medical records, which I don't have. You could call the VA. I'm not calling anyone, Cross said. I'm asking you to walk a line. If you can't do it, that's on you. Emily felt the anger rising in her chest, hot and sharp. She'd been patient, she'd been polite, she'd followed every instruction, and it still wasn't enough. This isn't legal, she said quietly. Cross's expression darkened. You a lawyer now? No, but I know my rights. Your rights. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lady, you're standing here with a bag full of pills, a story about some injury I can't see, and a limp that could mean anything. Your rights don't mean much if I think you're a danger on the road. I'm not. Walk the line or I'm taking you in. Emily's hands curled into fists on the hood. She wanted to scream. She wanted to grab her phone and call someone, anyone, who could make this stop. But her phone was still in the car, and Cross was blocking her path. She took a breath, then another, and then she made a decision. She pulled her phone from her jacket pocket, slowly, visibly, and held it up so Cross could see. I'm calling my lawyer, she said. Put the phone down. I have the right. I said put it down. Emily didn't move. She unlocked the screen and opened her contacts, scrolling to a name near the top. Not a lawyer. Something else. Cross stepped closer. Ma'am, if you don't put that phone down right now. Emily pressed call. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered. Clipped, professional, male. Hartman? Yeah, Emily said. I need you. There was a pause, then, location? Riverside, corner of 5th and Ashford. Stand by. The line went dead. Cross grabbed for the phone, but Emily pulled it back, slipping it into her pocket. His face was red now, veins standing out on his neck. Who did you just call? Emily didn't answer. I asked you a question. The sound of engines cut him off. Low, rumbling, getting closer. Cross turned toward the street, and Emily saw his expression shift from anger to confusion. 3 black SUVs rolled into view, moving in perfect formation. They didn't have lights or sirens, but they didn't need them. The way they moved, smooth, controlled, deliberate, said everything. They stopped in a line across the intersection, blocking both lanes. Doors opened in unison. Men stepped out, dressed in tactical gear with no visible insignia. They didn't run. They didn't shout. They just moved with the kind of precision that came from doing this 1,000 times before. One of them walked directly toward Cross. He was older, maybe 50, with gray at his temples and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. Officer, he said. His voice was calm, almost polite. Step away from the vehicle. Cross blinked. Who the hell are you? The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Military Criminal Investigations Division, Federal. Cross's face went pale. Step away from the vehicle, the man repeated. Now! Cross took a step back, then another. His hand hovered near his radio, but he didn't reach for it. The investigator walked past him without a second glance and stopped in front of Emily. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened just a fraction. Ma'am, he said. You all right? Emily nodded, though her hands were shaking worse now than they had all night. We've got it from here, he said. Another agent approached Cross holding a tablet. Officer Daniel Cross, badge number 4527. You are currently under investigation for unlawful detention, harassment of a protected veteran, and violation of federal statute 18 U.S.C. 242. You are required to surrender your body camera footage and provide a full statement to our office within 24 hours. Failure to comply will result in immediate suspension and potential federal charges. Cross opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. This is not negotiable, the agent said. Emily watched as more agents moved around the scene, documenting everything. One of them picked up her pill bottles from the hood and carefully placed them back in her medical bag. Another was photographing the contents of her car. A third was speaking quietly into a radio. The lead investigator turned back to Emily. We're going to need a statement from you as well, but not tonight. You've been through enough. Go home. We'll contact you tomorrow. What about him? Emily asked, nodding toward Cross. The investigator's expression didn't change. He's done. Cross was standing by his patrol car now, looking smaller somehow. One of the agents was already taking his body camera, detaching it with practiced efficiency. Another was on the phone, probably with his supervisor. Emily picked up her medical bag and limped back to her car. Her leg was screaming now, but she didn't care. She just wanted to leave. As she slid into the driver's seat, she caught Cross's eye one last time. He looked like he wanted to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but no words came. Emily started the engine, pulled away from the curb, and drove home. Behind her, the black SUVs stayed in formation, their presence a silent promise that this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The apartment door clicked shut behind her, and Emily stood in the dark for a full minute before she remembered to turn on the lights. Her hands were still shaking, not from the tremor this time, from adrenaline that had nowhere left to go. She dropped her keys on the counter, set her medical bag on the kitchen table, and walked straight to the bathroom. The fluorescent light buzzed to life, harsh and clinical. She gripped the edge of the sink and stared at her reflection. Same face, same tired eyes. Same person who'd left for the VA hospital that morning, thinking the biggest challenge of her day would be explaining to her physical therapist why she'd skipped last week's session. She turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on her face. Once, twice, 3 times. Then she grabbed a towel and pressed it against her eyes until the pressure made her head ache. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, half expecting another call from the investigator, but it was a text from her coworker at Riverside General. "You okay? Saw something on Twitter about a nurse getting pulled over." Emily stared at the message. Twitter. Of course. Someone had filmed it. Probably already uploaded it with a caption like "Cop harasses disabled woman" or "Police brutality caught on camera." She didn't have the energy to check. She typed back, "I'm fine. Talk tomorrow." Then she turned off her phone and tossed it onto the couch. Sleep didn't come easy. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Cross's face. The way he'd looked at her like she was lying, like her injury was an excuse, like her service didn't mean anything. And then she saw the agents. The way they'd moved with that quiet certainty that came from knowing exactly who they were and what they could do. She'd made that call because she knew it would work. Because 8 years ago, when she was still in uniform and still whole, she'd worked with people who didn't forget, people who kept lists, people who made promises. And tonight, one of them had kept his. When morning finally came, Emily dragged herself out of bed and made coffee. Her leg was stiff from standing too long the night before, and her back had that deep ache that meant she'd need an extra dose of muscle relaxant just to get through the day. She was supposed to work tonight, another 12-hour shift in the emergency department, but the thought of walking into the hospital and pretending everything was normal made her stomach turn. Her phone buzzed again. She'd turned it back on out of habit, and now the notifications were rolling in. 3 missed calls, 2 voicemails, a dozen texts. The first voicemail was from her supervisor at the hospital. "Emily, it's Karen. I just saw the video. Are you okay? Call me when you get this." The second was from a number she didn't recognize. "Ms. Hartman, this is Agent Rebecca Mora with MCID. We need to schedule a formal interview regarding last night's incident. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience." Emily deleted both and scrolled through the texts. Most were from coworkers, some genuinely concerned, others just curious. One was from her sister in Oregon, who never called unless something was wrong, or she'd seen Emily's name somewhere she shouldn't. "Is that you in the video? What the hell happened?" Emily didn't answer. She finished her coffee, took her meds, and got dressed. Then she grabbed her keys and headed out. The drive to the MCID office took 20 minutes. It was located in a nondescript building on the edge of Riverside's business district, the kind of place you'd drive past 100 times without noticing. No signs, no flags, just a street number and a keycard reader by the door. Emily parked in the visitor lot and limped inside. The lobby was small and sterile. White walls, gray carpet, a single desk with a receptionist who looked like she could bench press a sedan. "Emily Hartman," she said. "I'm here to see Agent Mora." The receptionist nodded and made a call. A minute later, a door opened and a woman stepped out. She was younger than Emily expected, early 30s maybe, with dark hair pulled into a tight bun and eyes that didn't miss anything. "Ms. Hartman," she said, extending a hand. "Rebecca Mora. Thanks for coming in." Emily shook her hand. "Didn't feel like I had much choice." Mora's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You always have a choice. This one just happens to be in your best interest." She led Emily down a hallway lined with closed doors and into a small conference room. There was a table, 4 chairs, and a recorder sitting in the center like a warning. "Have a seat," Maura said, gesturing to one of the chairs. "This won't take long." Emily sat. Maura sat across from her and pulled out a tablet, tapping through screens with quick, efficient movements. "I've already reviewed the body cam footage from Officer Cross's vehicle," Maura said, "and the dash cam, and 3 separate recordings from bystanders. What I need from you is a statement in your own words. Start from the beginning. Why were you pulled over?" Emily exhaled slowly. "I don't know. He didn't say." "Did he give a reason at any point during the stop?" "No." Maura made a note. "What happened after you pulled over?" Emily walked her through it. The demand for documents, the search of her car, the pill bottles, the request to walk a straight line. Maura didn't interrupt. She just listened, occasionally tapping something into her tablet. When Emily finished, Maura set the tablet down and leaned back in her chair. "How long have you been dealing with the nerve damage?" she asked. "Since 2016. And Cross was aware of this?" "I told him, multiple times." Maura nodded. "Did he make any comments about your injury?" Emily hesitated. "He said it didn't look real." "Those his exact words?" "Close enough." Maura's jaw tightened just for a second. Then she picked up the tablet again. "Officer Cross has been with the Riverside PD for 6 years. Clean record, no prior complaints, but that doesn't mean much." "What happens now?" Emily asked. "Now? We build a case." Cross violated at least 3 federal statutes last night, and that's just based on the footage. If we dig deeper, we'll probably find more. The department's already suspended him pending investigation. Emily blinked. Suspended? As of this morning. That fast? Maura looked at her like the question was naive. "You called us, Ms. Hartman. Once we're involved, things move quickly." Emily sat back in her chair, trying to process that. She'd expected bureaucracy, paperwork, weeks of waiting, not this. "What about the video, she asked. "The one online?" "It's evidence now, Maura said. "We've already requested copies from everyone who posted it. The department's trying to get ahead of the PR nightmare, but that's not our problem. Our job is to make sure Cross doesn't get away with this." "And if he does?" Maura's expression hardened. "He won't." There was a knock on the door. Another agent poked his head in, older, graying, the same one who'd been at the scene last night. "Maura, we got the internal affairs report. You're going to want to see this." Maura stood. "Give me a minute," she said to Emily, then followed the other agent out of the room. Emily was left alone with the recorder still running. She stared at it for a moment, then looked away. The walls were too white. The air was too cold. She felt like she was being examined under a microscope. Maura came back 5 minutes later holding a folder. She didn't sit down. "Change of plans," she said. "We need you to come with us." "Where?" "Riverside PD, there's something you need to see." Emily's stomach dropped. "I'm not going back there. You don't have to talk to anyone. You don't even have to get out of the car. But trust me, you want to see this." Emily didn't move. Maura waited, patient but firm. "Please," Maura said, "you've earned this." That was what did it. Not the command, the acknowledgement. Emily stood. "Fine." The drive to the Riverside Police Department was silent. Maura drove, and Emily sat in the passenger seat watching the city roll past. The streets were busier now, morning traffic, people heading to work, the world moving forward like last night hadn't happened. When they pulled into the parking lot, Emily saw the news vans first. 3 of them, parked near the entrance with reporters setting up cameras and checking their microphones. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk, some holding signs, others just watching. "What is this?" Emily asked. "Public accountability," Maura said. They didn't park near the entrance. Maura drove around to the side of the building and stopped near a service door. She pulled out her phone and made a call. "We're here," she said. Then she hung up and looked at Emily. "Wait." A minute later, the service door opened and another agent stepped out. He waved them forward. Maura got out of the car, and Emily followed, her leg protesting with every step. Inside the building was chaos, cops moving between offices, phones ringing, voices raised. No one looked at Emily. No one seemed to notice her at all. Maura led her down a hallway to a room with a one-way mirror. On the other side, Emily could see an interrogation room, and sitting at the table looking smaller than he had last night was Officer Daniel Cross. He wasn't in uniform anymore, just a plain shirt and jeans. His hands were folded on the table in front of him, and his face was pale. Across from him sat a woman in a suit, internal affairs probably, and another man Emily didn't recognize. Maura stood next to Emily. They're formally notifying him of the charges, federal and state. Emily watched through the glass as the woman slid a document across the table. Cross picked it up, read the first few lines, and set it down like it burned his hands. "This is wrong," he said. His voice came through a speaker in the corner of the room, tinny but clear. "I was doing my job." "Your job doesn't include unlawful detention," the woman said, "or harassment of a protected veteran." She was acting suspicious. She was driving home from a medical appointment. Cross's jaw tightened. "I didn't know. You didn't ask." The man next to her leaned forward. "Officer Cross, you've been with this department for 6 years. You've received multiple commendations. You've been a good cop. But what you did last night crossed a line, and now you're going to face the consequences." Said. Cross looked down at the table. "I want a lawyer?" "You'll get one," the woman said. "But this conversation is over." She stood, gathered her papers, and walked out. The man followed. Cross was left alone in the room, staring at the document like it might disappear if he looked long enough. Maura turned to Emily. "Satisfied?" Emily didn't answer right away. She was still watching Cross, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his hands curled into fists and then relaxed. He looked defeated, broken. She should have felt something, satisfaction, maybe, or vindication, but all she felt was tired. "What happens to him now?" she asked. "Arraignment in 2 days, Maura said. "Federal charges will take precedence. If he's convicted, he's looking at a minimum of 2 years. More if the judge wants to make an example. And if he's not, he will be." Emily turned away from the glass. "Can I go now?" Maura studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Yeah, we'll call you if we need anything else." Emily walked out of the building the same way she'd come in, through the service door, away from the cameras and the crowd. Maura didn't follow. Emily was alone again. She made it halfway to her car before her phone rang. She pulled it out, saw the number, and almost didn't answer, but something made her stop. "Hello? Emily Hartman?" The voice was male, unfamiliar. "Who's asking?" "My name is Marcus Delray. I'm an attorney with the Public Defenders Coalition. I represent Officer Daniel Cross." Emily's hand tightened on the phone. "I don't want to talk to you. I understand, but I need you to know something. I don't—" "Officer Cross made a mistake," Delray said, speaking quickly before she could hang up. "He knows that, but he's not a bad person. He's got a family, 2 kids, a wife who's 7 months pregnant. He's terrified right now, and he's sorry." Emily stopped walking. "Sorry?" "Yes. He didn't seem sorry last night. He was doing his job. He was humiliating me." There was a pause. Then Delray sighed. "Look, I'm not asking you to forgive him. I'm asking you to consider the impact this will have on his life. A federal conviction will destroy him. He'll lose his job, his pension, his reputation. His family will suffer." Emily felt the anger rising in her chest again, sharp and hot. "And what about me? What about what he put me through? I know." "No, you don't." Her voice was louder now. "You weren't there. You didn't see the way he looked at me. You didn't hear the way he talked to me, like I was nothing, like my service didn't matter, like I was lying. I understand you're upset." "I'm not upset," Emily said. "I'm done." She hung up. Her hands were shaking again. She shoved the phone back in her pocket and got in her car. She didn't start the engine right away. She just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. 2 kids. A pregnant wife. She didn't care. She shouldn't care. But the image was stuck in her head now, and she hated it. When she finally got home, there was a package waiting on her doorstep. Small, unmarked, no return address. Emily picked it up and turned it over in her hands. It was light. almost empty. She carried it inside and set it on the table. Then she grabbed a knife from the kitchen and sliced through the tape. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded in half. Emily unfolded it and read the handwritten message. "You made the right call. Stay strong. Jay." That was it. No explanation, no context, just a letter and a name she hadn't seen in years. Jameson. Emily sat down hard in the nearest chair. Jameson hadn't just been a colleague. He'd been her commanding officer in Kandahar, the one who'd pulled her out of the wreckage after the convoy hit the IED, the one who'd stayed with her in the field hospital while the surgeons tried to save her leg, the one who'd told her, 6 months later when she was medically discharged, that if she ever needed anything, she knew how to reach him. And last night, she had. She folded the paper and set it aside. Then she pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found his number. She stared at it for a long time before pressing call. It rang 3 times. Then his voice came through, familiar and steady. "Hartman." "It's me." "I know." There was a pause. "You okay?" "I don't know." "Fair enough." Emily leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. "His lawyer called me. Said Cross has a family. Said I should think about what this will do to them. And I hung up on him." Jameson was quiet for a moment. Then, "Good. Is it?" "Yeah, it is." Emily opened her eyes. "I keep thinking, what if I'd just done what he asked? What if I'd walked the line, failed, and let him arrest me? Would it have been easier? Easier for who? For everyone." "Bullshit," Jameson said, and there was an edge to his voice now. "You didn't do anything wrong. He did, and now he gets to deal with the consequences. That's not on you. His wife is pregnant. Not your problem." Emily exhaled slowly. "You always were good at cutting through the noise." "Someone has to be." His tone softened. "Listen, you did what you had to do. You called for backup, and we came. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. I know." "Do you?" Emily didn't answer. "You still think you have to carry everything yourself," Jameson said. "You always did, but you don't. Not anymore." "I'm fine." "You're not, but you will be." Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Thanks. Don't thank me. Just don't let them make you feel guilty for standing up for yourself." "I won't." "Good. And Hartman?" "Yeah?" "If that lawyer calls again, hang up. Don't engage. Let the system do its job." "Okay." "I mean it. I said okay." Jameson chuckled. "Still stubborn. Still breathing. That's all that matters." They hung up, and Emily set the phone down. She felt lighter somehow. Not fixed, but less broken. She spent the rest of the day trying to distract herself, cleaning the apartment, doing laundry, avoiding the news. But by evening, the walls were closing in again, and she needed air. She grabbed her jacket and headed out for a walk. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The streets were quieter now, the rush hour traffic thinning out. She walked without a destination, just moving because staying still felt worse. Her leg ached, but she ignored it. Pain was familiar. Pain she could handle. She ended up at a park a few blocks from her apartment. It was mostly empty. Just a couple walking their dog and a kid on a skateboard. Emily found a bench and sat down, watching the last of the daylight fade. Her phone buzzed. Another text. This time from a number she didn't recognize. "You don't know me, but I saw what happened. Thank you for not backing down. A stranger who's been there." Emily stared at the message. Then another came in. And another. "You're braver than you know. Stay strong. We're with you. Don't let them win." She scrolled through them, dozens of messages from people she'd never met. Some were encouraging. Some were angry on her behalf. Some just said thank you. And then she saw the one that made her stop. "I hope that cop rots. People like him don't deserve mercy." Emily's chest tightened. She read it again, then locked her phone and shoved it back in her pocket. Mercy. She thought about Cross sitting in that interrogation room, looking small and scared. She thought about his lawyer's voice on the phone, pleading for leniency. She thought about his wife, his kids, the life he was about to lose. And then she thought about the way he'd looked at her last night, the way he'd dismissed her injury, the way he'd made her feel like she didn't matter. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. Agent Mora. Emily answered. Yeah? We need to talk, Mora said. Something's come up. What? Not over the phone. Can you come back to the office? Emily's pulse kicked up. When? Now. She stood, ignoring the protest from her leg. I'll be there in 20. Good. And Hartman? Yeah? Bring everything you have from last night. Documents, receipts, anything that proves where you were and what you were doing. Why? Mora hesitated. Because Cross's team just filed a counter-complaint. They're claiming you assaulted an officer. Emily's world tilted. What? They're saying you became aggressive during the stop, that you refused lawful commands, that you made threatening gestures. That's a lie. I know, but we need to prove it, so bring everything. Mora hung up before Emily could respond. She stood there in the park, phone still pressed to her ear, trying to process what she'd just heard. Assault. They were accusing her of assault. She thought about the way Cross had grabbed for her phone, the way he'd stepped into her space, forcing her back against the car, the way his hand had hovered near his weapon, not quite touching it, but close enough to make the threat clear. And now he was claiming she was the aggressor. Emily shoved her phone in her pocket and started walking, fast, faster than her leg could handle, but she didn't care. The anger was back, white-hot and burning through every rational thought. They weren't just trying to defend Cross. They were trying to destroy her. By the time she reached her car, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. She sat there for a moment, forcing herself to breathe, forcing herself to think. This was the play. Of course it was. Cross couldn't win on the facts, so his team was going to flip the narrative. Make her the problem. Make her the threat. And if it worked, everything she'd been through, the humiliation, the fear, the violation, would be erased. Worse than erased, rewritten. Emily started the engine and pulled out of the parking lot. The drive to the MCID office felt longer this time, every red light stretching into eternity. Her mind was racing, cataloging every detail from the night before, every word Cross had said, every movement he'd made. She had the truth, but the truth didn't always win. When she arrived at the office, Mora was waiting in the lobby. She looked grim. "Come on," she said, leading Emily back to the conference room. "We need to go through this step by step." Emily dropped into the chair and pulled out her phone. "I have the call log, the one I made to Jameson. Timestamp puts it at 10:47 p.m. Good. What else? My VA appointment was at 3 p.m. I have the discharge paperwork in my car. Get it." Emily went back out to the parking lot, grabbed the folder from her glove box, and returned. Mora spread the documents across the table, photographing each one with her phone. "What about witnesses?" Mora asked. "Anyone who saw the stop?" There were people on the street, at least 3. One of them was filming. "We have that footage, but Cross's attorney is going to argue it was edited, taken out of context." "How can it be out of context? It shows everything." Mora looked at her. "They're going to say the video starts after you became aggressive, that whatever happened before the cameras came out justified his response." Emily's jaw clenched. "So what do? We find every piece of evidence that proves you were compliant, every witness who saw you follow his commands, every second of footage that shows you weren't a threat. And if we can't?" Mora didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Then it becomes your word against his, and juries don't always side with civilians." Emily felt the floor drop out from under her. "So he might win." "He might. Even with everything we have. Even with everything we have." Emily sat back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. She'd thought this was over. She'd thought justice was guaranteed. But nothing was guaranteed. Not in this system. Not ever. "There's something else," Mora said quietly. Emily looked at her. "Cross's union rep released a statement this morning. They're calling you a disgruntled veteran who's been looking for a payday. They're saying you baited him into the stop so you could file a lawsuit." Emily's hands curled into fists. "That's insane." "Doesn't matter. It's out there now. And people are going to believe it." "Why would they believe that?" "Because it's easier than admitting one of their own screwed up." Emily stood up, unable to sit still any longer. She paced the length of the room, her legs screaming in protest. So what do I do? Just sit here and let them tear me apart? No, huh? Maura said. You fight back. But you do it smart. You don't engage with the press. You don't respond to the union. You let us handle it. And what are you going to do? Maura's expression hardened. We're going to bury them. Emily stopped pacing. How? We're pulling Cross's entire service record. Every stop he's made in the last 6 years, every complaint, every incident report, every body cam video. If there's a pattern, we'll find it. And if there's not, then we focus on what we have. The footage, the witnesses, your medical records. We build a case so airtight they can't poke a single hole in it. Emily wanted to believe her. She wanted to trust that the system would work, that the truth would come out, that justice would be served. But she'd been through this before. She knew how these things went. She knew how easy it was for the powerful to rewrite history, to shift blame, to walk away clean while the people they hurt were left picking up the pieces. What if it's not enough? Emily asked quietly. Maura met her gaze. Then we make it enough. They worked late into the night, going over every detail, every document, every second of footage. By the time Emily left the office, it was past midnight and her head was pounding. She drove home on autopilot, her mind too full to process anything else. When she finally collapsed into bed, she didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Maura over and over. They're claiming you assaulted an officer. They're saying you baited him. Juries don't always side with civilians. Somewhere across the city, Cross was probably doing the same thing, lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering how his life had come to this. And for the first time since the stop, Emily felt something other than anger. She felt afraid, because this wasn't just about one bad cop anymore. It was about a system that protected its own, no matter the cost. A system that could twist the truth until victims became villains and criminals walked free. And Emily was standing right in the middle of it, with everything to lose and no guarantee she'd come out the other side. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Another message. This one from a blocked number. You should have kept your mouth shut. Emily stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Then she deleted the message and turned off her phone. But sleep still didn't come. Emily lay there until the first gray light of dawn crept through the blinds, then gave up and dragged herself out of bed. Her leg felt like dead weight, the kind of deep ache that no amount of medication could touch. She swallowed her pills anyway, chased them with lukewarm coffee, and stared at her phone. 17 new messages, 6 missed calls, all from numbers she didn't recognize. She opened the first one. Hope you're proud of yourself. That man has kids. Delete. Lying about a cop? You should be ashamed. Delete. We know where you work. Emily's hand froze. She read it again. Then she screenshotted it and forwarded it to Maura without a word. The response came back in under a minute. Forward all threats immediately. Do not respond. We're logging everything. Emily set the phone face down on the counter and walked to the window. The street outside was quiet, just a few early risers walking dogs, a delivery truck idling at the corner. Normal. Ordinary. Like the world hadn't shifted underneath her feet. Her phone rang. She checked the screen. Jameson. She answered. Yeah. You see the news? Emily's stomach dropped. No. Turn it on, channel 7. She grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV. The morning news was already rolling, and there he was, Officer Daniel Cross, standing on the steps of the police union headquarters with his lawyer beside him. He looked different in daylight, smaller. His eyes were red-rimmed, and his voice cracked when he spoke. I made a mistake, he said into the microphone. I let the situation escalate when I should have de-escalated. I should have been more patient, more understanding, and for that, I'm sorry. The reporters erupted with questions, but his lawyer raised a hand. Officer Cross is here today to take responsibility for his actions, the lawyer said. But we also want to be clear, Ms. Hartman's characterization of events is not entirely accurate. Officer Cross followed protocol. He had reasonable suspicion to conduct a traffic stop, and when Miss Hartman became non-compliant and verbally aggressive, Emily muted the TV. Her hands were shaking again. You still there? Jameson asked. Yeah. It's a play. You know that, right? They're softening him up for the jury, making him look human, sympathetic. I know. Don't let it get to you. Too late. Jameson sighed. You need to stay off the internet. Don't read the comments. Don't watch the coverage. Let Maura handle it. Easy for you to say. I know it's not easy, but you've been through worse. Emily closed her eyes. Have I? Yeah, you have. She wanted to believe him, but Kandahar had been different. The enemy was clear. The rules were known. This was something else. A war fought with lawyers and cameras and public opinion, and she didn't know how to fight it. I gotta go, she said. Call me if you need anything. I will. She hung up and turned off the TV. Then she called in sick to work for the second day in a row, ignored the concerned texts from her supervisor, and sat on the couch staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed. Maura, need you at the office. 1 hour. Emily didn't ask why. She just got dressed and left. When she arrived, Maura was waiting with another agent, a man Emily hadn't met before. He was older, late 50s maybe, with silver hair and a face that looked like it had seen every ugly thing the world had to offer. Emily Hartman, this is Special Agent Vincent Cade, Maura said. He's leading the investigation. Cade extended a hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. Miss Hartman, sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. Emily nodded. What's going on? Maura gestured to the conference room. We found something. Inside, the table was covered with printouts, body cam stills, incident reports, records Emily didn't recognize. Cade sat down and slid a folder across to her. We pulled Cross's service jacket, he said. 6 years on the force, 43 commendations, 0 sustained complaints. Emily's chest tightened. So he's clean. On paper. Cade opened the folder. But paper doesn't tell the whole story. He pulled out a report dated 3 years earlier. Traffic stop. Female driver. Hispanic. The complainant had alleged excessive force and unlawful search, but the investigation had been closed after 2 weeks. Insufficient evidence. She withdrew the complaint, Cade said. Officially, it was voluntary. But we tracked her down yesterday. Want to guess why she dropped it? Emily didn't answer. Because Cross's union rep visited her at work. Told her if she kept pushing, they'd dig into her background. Find out if she had any outstanding warrants, unpaid tickets, immigration issues. Told her it'd be easier for everyone if she just let it go. Emily's jaw clenched. That's witness intimidation. Yeah, it is. Cade pulled out another report. Here's another one. 2 years ago. Traffic stop. Black male, mid-20s, complaint filed for unlawful detention. Closed after the complainant stopped responding to calls. How many are there? Emily asked. 7, Maura said. That we've found so far. Emily stared at the files spread across the table. 7 people. 7 stops. 7 complaints buried under paperwork and pressure. Why didn't anyone notice? She asked. Because none of them were sustained, Cade said. And the department doesn't track patterns unless complaints go through the official process. These people gave up before it got that far. So Cross has been doing this for years. Looks that way. Emily sat back in her chair. And the department just let it happen. They didn't let it happen, Maura said. They didn't look. Big difference. Cade leaned forward. Here's the good news. These cases give us a pattern. They show Cross has a history of targeting people he perceives as vulnerable, people who won't fight back. Except I did, Emily said quietly. Yeah, you did. Maura tapped one of the reports. We're reaching out to all 7 complainants. If even 2 of them agree to testify, Cross's defense falls apart. He's not a good cop who made one mistake. He's a repeat offender who finally got caught. Emily looked at the faces in the photos. Young, scared, resigned. People who'd been where she was now. People who'd chosen to walk away because the fight felt impossible. Will they testify? She asked. Cade's expression darkened. Some will, some won't, but we only need a few. And if they don't? Then we work with what we have, Maura said. The body cam footage, the bystander videos, your medical records, it's still a strong case, but not guaranteed. Nothing's ever guaranteed. Emily stood and walked to the window. Outside, the city was waking up, people heading to work, living their lives, unaware that 7 blocks away, someone's entire future was being decided in a conference room. "There's something else," Cade said. Emily turned. "Cross's lawyer is filing a motion to suppress the body cam footage, claiming it was obtained without proper authorization." "That's bullshit," Emily said. "He was wearing it during the stop." "Yeah, but they're arguing that because MCID took possession of it without a warrant, it's inadmissible." "Can they do that?" "They can try," Morris said. "The judge will decide. But if the motion is granted, we lose our strongest piece of evidence." Emily felt the ground shifting again. "When's the hearing?" "Friday. That's 2 days." "Yeah." Emily sat back down. "So what do we do?" Cade pulled out another file. "We fight. We bring in a forensic analyst to authenticate the footage. We get the bystander videos certified. We make sure every piece of evidence we have is bulletproof. And if the judge still suppresses it? Then we pivot," Morris said. "We focus on the pattern. We bring in the other complainants. We show the jury who Cross really is." Emily rubbed her temples. "This is never going to end, is it?" "It'll end," Cade said. "Just not as fast as you want it to." The meeting lasted another hour. By the time Emily left, her head was pounding, and her leg felt like it was on fire. She stopped at a pharmacy on the way home and picked up her refill, then sat in the parking lot and dry swallowed 2 pills. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her press the green button. "Hello? Ms. Hartman?" A woman's voice, hesitant. "My name is Sophia Ruiz. I saw you on the news. I think we need to talk." Emily's pulse quickened. "Who are you?" "I was pulled over by Officer Cross 3 years ago. I filed a complaint, but I dropped it. I thought I was the only one. But then I saw your story, and I realized—" Her voice broke. "I should have fought," Sophia said. "I should have kept going, but I was scared. And now I'm watching you go through the same thing, and I can't. I can't just stay quiet anymore." Emily closed her eyes. "Are you willing to testify?" There was a long pause. Then, "Yes. If it helps you, yes. It will." "Okay. Tell me what I need to do." Emily gave her Maura's number and hung up. Then she sat in the car for another 10 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. One voice. One person willing to step forward. It wasn't much, but it was something. By the time she got home, the sun was setting and exhaustion had settled into her bones like cement. She heated up a frozen dinner, ate half of it, and collapsed on the couch with the TV on mute. Her phone buzzed. A text from Maura. "Sophia Ruiz just called." "You talked to her?" "Yeah. Good work. We're bringing her in tomorrow." Emily set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in days, she felt something other than fear or anger. She felt hope. It didn't last long. The next morning, she woke to her phone ringing. Maura's name flashed on the screen. "Yeah?" "We have a problem." Maura's voice was tight. Someone leaked Sophia's name to Cross's legal team. They're already calling her a liar, saying she's just looking for a payout. Emily sat up. "How did they get her name?" "We don't know, but it's out there now." "Is she still willing to testify?" There was a pause. "She's scared. We're trying to reassure her, but what?" "But Cross's team is already digging into her background. They found an old DUI from 5 years ago. They're going to use it to discredit her." Emily's hands curled into fists. "So what do we do?" "We prep her. We make sure she's ready for cross-examination. But Hartman, this is going to get ugly. They're not just coming after Cross anymore. They're coming after everyone who stands with you." Emily ended the call and stood in the middle of her living room, hands shaking. This wasn't justice. This was war. And she was starting to wonder if she had the strength to see it through. The hearing on Friday was held in a gray courthouse that smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Emily sat in the gallery with Maura beside her, watching as lawyers argued over whether the body cam footage could be admitted. Cross's attorney was a sharp-dressed man in his 40s with a voice like polished steel. He stood before the judge and made his case with clinical precision. "Your Honor, the footage in question was seized without a warrant, without probable cause. without any legal justification whatsoever. The fact that it was obtained by federal agents doesn't change the constitutional violation at its core. The prosecutor, a tired-looking woman with graying hair, countered, "Your Honor, the body cam footage is public record. Officer Cross was on duty, performing his official responsibilities. There's no expectation of privacy." "But there is an expectation of due process," the defense attorney shot back. "The seizure was conducted outside the chain of command, without notification to the department, and without judicial oversight. It's a textbook Fourth Amendment violation." The judge leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled. She was an older woman, late 60s, with a face that gave nothing away. "I'll take this under advisement," she said, "but I want to be clear. If I find that the footage was improperly obtained, it will be excluded. And counselor," she looked at the prosecutor, "you'd better have a backup plan." The gavel fell. Emily and Maura walked out of the courtroom in silence. Outside, the sky was overcast, threatening rain. "What happens if she excludes it?" Emily asked. "Then we rely on the bystander footage and witness testimony," Maura said. "It's not as clean, but it's enough." "You sure about that?" Maura didn't answer. They were halfway to the parking lot when a man stepped in front of them. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut and a jacket that read, "Riverside Police Union." "Ms. Hartman," he said. "Got a minute?" Maura moved between them. "She's got nothing to say to you." "I'm not here to start trouble," the man said, raising his hands. "I just want to talk." "Then talk to her lawyer." "I'm talking to her." He looked past Maura directly at Emily. "You're making a mistake. You know that, right? This whole thing, it's going to destroy you. The press is already turning. Public opinion's shifting. People are starting to ask questions." "Let them ask," Emily said. "Cross made a mistake. He knows it. He's sorry, but you're trying to ruin his life over one bad stop." "One bad stop?" Emily's voice rose. "He humiliated me. He treated me like a criminal, and now I find out I'm not the first." The man's expression didn't change. "Those other complaints were dismissed. No evidence, no merit. Because people were scared, or because they were lying." Maura grabbed Emily's arm. "We're done here." But the man wasn't finished. "You keep pushing this, and it's going to blow back on you. You think you're the hero in this story? You're not. You're just another angry vet with an axe to grind." Emily stepped forward, ignoring Maura's grip. "I'm not angry. I'm right, and that scares you more than anything." The man's jaw tightened. Then he stepped aside. "Good luck," he said. "You're going to need it." They walked away, and Emily didn't look back. That night, Emily couldn't sleep again. She kept replaying the confrontation in the parking lot, the man's words echoing in her head. "You're just another angry vet with an axe to grind." Was that what people thought? Was that the narrative taking hold? She grabbed her laptop and opened Twitter. Big mistake. The top trending hashtag in Riverside was hashtag Justice for Cross. Emily scrolled through the tweets, each one worse than the last. This woman is trying to destroy a good cop's career over nothing. Cross made one mistake, and now his life is over. Where's the justice in that? She's obviously lying, just looking for a payout. There were pictures of Cross's family, his wife, his 2 kids. Someone had even started a GoFundMe for his legal defense. It had already raised over $50,000. Emily closed the laptop and threw it across the room. Then she grabbed her phone and called Maura. "I need to make a statement," Emily said when Maura answered. "No, you don't." "People think I'm lying. They think I'm doing this for money." "Let them think whatever they want. You start talking to the press. You give Cross's team ammunition. They'll twist everything you say." "So I'm just supposed to sit here and let them destroy me?" "You're supposed to trust the process. The process isn't working." Maura was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What do you want me to tell you, Hartman? That this is fair? It's not. That it's easy? It's not. But if you go out there and start defending yourself, you're playing their game, and they're better at it than you are." Emily hung up. She sat in the dark, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on her. Somewhere across the city, Cross was probably with his family, tucking his kids into bed, holding his pregnant wife, living his life while hers fell apart. And for the first time, Emily wondered if any of this was worth it. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're not alone. Keep fighting. Then another. We believe you. And another. Don't give up. Emily read them all. Then she turned off her phone and went to bed. The next morning, Maura called with news. The judge ruled on the motion, she said. Emily's stomach dropped. And? The body cam footage is admissible. Cross's team tried to argue it was improperly seized, but the judge wasn't buying it. It's in. Emily exhaled. That's good. It's better than good. It's a game changer. So what happens now? Now we prep for trial. And Hartman? Yeah? Sophia Ruiz isn't the only one who reached out. We've got 3 more complainants willing to testify. Cross's pattern of behavior is about to become very public. Emily felt something shift in her chest. Not relief, not yet, but something close. When's the trial? 3 weeks. Okay, you ready for this? Emily thought about the threats, the harassment, the sleepless nights, the way her life had been turned inside out. Yeah, she said, I'm ready. But 3 days later, everything changed. Emily was at the grocery store when her phone rang. Maura's name flashed on the screen. Turn on the news, Maura said without preamble. What's going on? Just turn it on. Emily abandoned her cart and pulled out her phone, opening a news app. The headline hit her like a punch to the gut. Officer Daniel Cross found dead in apparent suicide. Emily's vision blurred. She read it again, then again. No, she whispered. Hartman, no. She hung up and stumbled out of the store, her leg barely holding her weight. She made it to her car and collapsed into the driver's seat, hands shaking so badly she couldn't get the key in the ignition. Her phone rang again. Maura. Emily didn't answer. It rang again. Jameson. She didn't answer. It rang a third time. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Ms. Hartman? A woman's voice, shaking, crying. This is Sarah Cross, Daniel's wife. Emily's world stopped. You killed him, Sarah said, her voice breaking. You took everything from him, and now my children don't have a father. The line went dead. Emily sat in the parking lot, staring at nothing, feeling the walls close in from every direction. Across town, the news was already spinning the story. Cross had left a note, just 3 words. I'm so sorry. Emily sat in the parking lot, staring at nothing, feeling the walls close in from every direction. Across town, the news was already spinning the story. Cross had left a note. Just 3 words. I'm so sorry. Emily's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She turned it off and drove home on autopilot, barely registering the traffic lights or the turns. When she pulled into her parking spot, there were already 2 news vans waiting outside her building. She reversed out and kept driving. She ended up at a truck stop 40 miles outside Riverside, sitting in a corner booth with cold coffee she wasn't drinking. The TV above the counter was showing the story on repeat. Cross's photo. His wife sobbing at a press conference. His 2 kids, faces blurred but still recognizable. A man's voice cut through the diner noise. Shame what happened to that cop. Emily looked up. The speaker was an older man at the counter, talking to the waitress. Yeah, the waitress said, refilling his cup. All over some traffic stop. Poor guy. Woman who reported him should be ashamed of herself. Emily's hands tightened around her mug. Heard she was military, the man continued. You'd think she'd have thicker skin. But no. Had to ruin a man's life over nothing. The waitress nodded. His wife's pregnant too, can you imagine? Emily stood up, threw a 20 on the table, and walked out. She sat in her car until dark, then drove to a motel on the edge of town and paid cash for a room. No ID, no questions. Just a key and a door that locked. She lay on the bed fully clothed and stared at the water-stained ceiling until her phone, turned back on out of habit, buzzed with a call from Maura. Emily answered. What? Where are you? Somewhere else, Sika. We need to talk. I don't want to talk. Hartman, listen to me. He's dead, Maura. He's dead because of me. He's dead because he made a choice. That's not on you. Emily laughed, but there was no humor in it. Tell that to his kids. I will if I have to, but right now, I need you to focus, because there's something you need to know. Emily closed her eyes. What? Cross didn't kill himself. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. What are you talking about? Emily said slowly. The medical examiner's preliminary report just came in. Cross had a blood alcohol level of 0.23. That's almost 3 times the legal limit. But here's the thing, Cross didn't drink. Not according to his wife, not according to his personnel file. He was a teetotaler, refused alcohol at department functions, wouldn't even have a beer at barbecues. Emily sat up. So someone got him drunk. Maybe. Or maybe he was desperate enough to start. But there's more. The autopsy found bruising on his wrists, fresh, defensive wounds possibly, and the note? Handwriting analysis shows it might not be his. Might not? They're running further tests, but the initial comparison shows inconsistencies. Emily's mind was racing. So what are you saying? Someone killed him and made it look like suicide? I'm saying it's not as simple as it looks, and until we know for sure, you need to stay out of sight. Why? Because whoever did this, if someone did this, they had a reason. And that reason might involve making you look like you drove a man to his death. Emily felt the cold settle into her bones. So I'm not just the villain anymore. I'm the murderer. In the court of public opinion, yeah, that's exactly what you are, which is why you need to let us handle this. Handle what? You don't even know what happened. Not yet. But we will. Just stay where you are. Don't talk to anyone. Don't post anything. Don't even breathe in a direction someone can photograph. Maura hung up. Emily sat in the silence of the motel room, trying to process what she'd just heard. Cross was dead. Maybe suicide. Maybe not. And either way, the world had already decided whose fault it was. She turned on the TV. Every channel was covering it. Cross's union rep was on one, talking about the tragic consequences of false accusations. A legal analyst on another was speculating about whether Emily could be held liable. A third showed footage of a candlelight vigil outside the Riverside Police Department, with officers standing in uniform and civilians holding signs. Justice for Cross. Blue Lives Matter. Stop the witch hunt. Emily turned off the TV and sat in the dark. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jameson. Where are you? She didn't answer. Another buzz. Answer me. Then another. Hartman, I swear to God. She typed back. I'm fine. Leave me alone. Bullshit. Tell me where you are. No. Her phone rang. Jameson. She ignored it. He called again. And again. Finally, she answered. What? Where are you? Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Jameson was quiet for a moment, then, You didn't do this. His wife thinks I did. His wife is grieving. She's looking for someone to blame. And she found me. Because it's easier than blaming him. But you didn't pull that trigger, Hartman. He did. If he even pulled it at all. Jameson paused. Maura told you. Yeah. Then you know this whole thing stinks. Doesn't matter. The damage is done. People think I killed him. They think I'm a monster. Let them think whatever they want. The truth will come out. When? After I lose my job? After I can't walk down the street without someone spitting at me? Jameson's voice hardened. You've faced worse. This is different. No, it's not. It's just a different kind of fight, and you're not done fighting yet. Emily hung up. She lay back down and closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come. Instead, she kept seeing Cross's face. Not from the night of the stop, but from the interrogation room. The way he'd looked small, defeated. Had she done that to him? Or had someone else? The next morning, Emily checked out of the motel and drove back to Riverside. She didn't go home. Instead, she went to the MCID office and walked straight past the receptionist, who tried to stop her. Maura was in the conference room with Cade and 2 other agents Emily didn't recognize. They looked up as she entered. Hartman, Maura started. I want to see the report, Emily said. You can't. I want to see it, now. Cade exchanged a glance with Maura, then slid a folder across the table. Emily opened it and started reading. The medical examiner's notes were clinical and detached. Time of death. Approximately 11 p.m. Cause. Single gunshot wound to the head. Manner, pending further investigation. Then she got to the details Maura had mentioned. The blood alcohol level, the bruising, the handwriting analysis. These inconsistencies, Emily said, looking up. How inconsistent? Enough to raise questions, Cade said. Not enough to prove anything yet. What about the gun? Was it his? Registered to him, kept in a lockbox in his bedroom. His wife confirmed it was there that morning. And the note? Found on the kitchen table. No prints except his. Emily set the folder down. So either he got drunk, wrote a note that might not be in his handwriting, and shot himself. Or someone staged the whole thing. That's the question, Cade said. What does his wife say? She's not talking to us. Her lawyer advised her to stay silent until the investigation is complete. Emily leaned back in her chair. You think someone killed him? I think it's possible, Cade said carefully. But I also think it's possible he really did kill himself. People don't always act rationally when they're facing the kind of pressure Cross was under. What kind of pressure? Moore pulled out another file. This came in yesterday. Cross's bank records. He withdrew $15,000 in cash 2 days before he died. We don't know what he did with it. Emily frowned. Did you ask his wife? She says she doesn't know, says he didn't tell her. $15,000 is a lot of money to not mention. Yeah, Cade said. It is. Emily's mind was working through the possibilities. What if he was paying someone off? For what? I don't know. But a cop facing federal charges and a pattern of behavior investigation? That's motive to make things go away. Maura nodded slowly. We thought of that. We're looking into it. What about the union? Emily asked. They've been running defense for him this whole time. What if they're involved? Involved how? I don't know, but they had just as much to lose as he did. A guilty verdict would open the door to more investigations, more complaints, more liability. Cade tapped the table. That's a dangerous accusation to make without proof. Then get proof. We're trying, but this isn't a TV show, Hartman. We can't just pull evidence out of thin air. Emily stood. Then what can I do? Nothing, Maura said. You stay out of sight. You let us work. I can't just sit around. Yes, you can, because if this is a murder, and if someone staged it to look like you drove Cross to suicide, then you being visible makes you a target. Emily's jaw tightened. I'm already a target. Not the kind I'm talking about, Cade said. Whoever did this, if someone did this, they're smart, careful, and they're not done. How do you know? Because if the goal was to discredit you, it worked. But if the goal was something bigger, covering up the pattern, protecting the department, silencing the other complainants, then you're just the first move. Emily felt the cold settle in again. The other complainants? Sophia, the others who agreed to testify. We've already put them under protection, Maura said. But you need to disappear for a while, just until we figure out what's really going on. I'm not running. I'm not asking you to run. I'm asking you to be smart. Emily shook her head. I've been smart. I've played by the rules, and it got me here. So maybe it's time to stop being smart and start being loud. Hartman. But Emily was already walking out. She went straight to her car and drove to the one place she knew would be watched, the Riverside Police Department. The protest was still going on outside, smaller than before but still there. Signs, candles, a makeshift memorial with Cross's photo surrounded by flowers. Emily parked across the street and got out. The moment she stepped onto the sidewalk, someone recognized her. That's her! Heads turned, voices rose. Murderer! You killed him! Emily kept walking toward the memorial. Her leg was aching, but she didn't slow down. A man stepped in front of her, the same union rep who'd confronted her outside the courthouse. You've got some nerve showing up here. I'm not here to cause trouble, Emily said. Too late for that. I'm here because I want the truth. The truth? The man laughed. The truth is you destroyed a good man's life, and now he's dead. That's the truth. Emily met his gaze. Then why are you so scared of an investigation? The man's expression flickered. What? You heard me. If Cross really killed himself, if there's nothing to hide, then why is the union fighting so hard to shut this down? We're not. You are. You've been doing it from the start. Burying complaints, pressuring witnesses, and now, conveniently, the man who could expose it all is dead. The crowd was listening now. Phones were out, recording. The union rep stepped closer, voice low. You need to leave. Now. Or what? Or I can't guarantee your safety. Emily looked past him at the crowd. Some faces were angry, but some were uncertain, questioning. She raised her voice. Daniel Cross was facing federal charges for a pattern of abuse. 7 people came forward with complaints. 7. And the department buried every single one. So you tell me, who's really responsible for what happened to him? You are, someone shouted. Am I? Or is it the system that protected him for years? The union that covered up his mistakes? The department that looked the other way? The union rep grabbed her arm. That's enough. Emily pulled free. I'm not done. Yes, you are. 2 uniformed officers appeared, moving through the crowd toward her. Emily recognized one of them from the night of the stop, one of the first responders who'd arrived with the MCID agents. Ma'am, he said, voice neutral, you need to leave the area. Why? I'm not breaking any laws. You're inciting a disturbance. I'm telling the truth. Ma'am, did you know about the other complaints? Emily asked, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Did you know Cross had a history of targeting people who couldn't fight back? Or did the department keep that from you too? The officer's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Ma'am, please, I'm leaving, Emily said. Then she turned to the crowd. But I'm not done. The truth is coming out, all of it. And when it does, you're going to have to decide who you believe. She walked back to her car, got in, and drove away. Her hands didn't start shaking until she was 3 blocks gone. Her phone rang. Maura. What the hell was that? Maura demanded. A message. To who? To whoever's watching. You just painted a target on your back. Good. Let them come. Maura was silent for a moment. Then, you're insane. Maybe, but I'm done hiding. Hartman. Emily hung up. She drove to a coffee shop with free Wi-Fi and opened her laptop. Then she started writing. Everything. The stop, the pattern, the investigation, the suspicious circumstances around Cross's death. All of it. When she was finished, she had a 3,000-word account of everything that had happened. She posted it to a blog she created on the spot. Then she shared it on every social media platform she had. Within an hour, it had been shared 500 times. Within 2 hours, local news stations were calling. Within 3, it was trending nationally. Emily's phone exploded with notifications. Reporters requesting interviews, supporters sending messages, trolls sending threats. And then, buried in the noise, a text from an unknown number. You just made a very big mistake. Emily stared at it. Then she screenshotted it and forwarded it to Maura. The response came back immediately. Get somewhere public. Now. Emily grabbed her laptop and left the coffee shop. She drove to the busiest mall in Riverside and parked near the entrance. Then she went inside and sat in the food court where cameras and crowds provided a buffer. Her phone rang. Maura. Where are you? The Riverside Plaza, food court. Stay there. We're sending someone. Who? Just stay there. 20 minutes later, an agent Emily didn't recognize appeared. He was young, maybe late 20s, with the kind of face that blended into crowds. Ms. Hartman? He said quietly. Yeah, but come with me. He led her out a side exit to an unmarked car. They drove in silence back to the MCID office. Inside, Maura was waiting with Cade and 3 other agents. Sit, Maura said. Emily sat. Cade slid a tablet across the table. Read this. It was an email sent from an encrypted account to an anonymous tip line the MCID maintained. The subject line was blank. The body contained a single sentence. If you want to know what really happened to Daniel Cross, check his phone records from the night he died. Emily looked up. Where did this come from? We don't know, Cade said, but we're pulling the records now. An hour later, they had them. Cross had made 3 calls the night he died. The first was to his wife at 7:15 p.m. The second was to his lawyer at 8:42 p.m. The third was to an unlisted number at 10:03 p.m. Who's the unlisted number? Emily asked. Cade pulled up the trace. The number belonged to a burner phone, purchased with cash 2 weeks earlier at a convenience store in South Riverside. No name, no records. But, Cade said, we pulled security footage from the store, and we got a face. He turned the tablet toward Emily. The man on the screen was in his 50s, gray hair, sunglasses. He was paying for the phone at the register, head slightly turned away from the camera. Emily squinted. I don't recognize him. Neither do we, but facial recognition is running. We'll have an ID soon. 2 hours later, they did. The man's name was Vincent Carlisle, former detective with the Riverside PD, retired 5 years ago, currently working as a private investigator. What's his connection to Cross? Emily asked. Maura pulled up Carlisle's file. They worked together, same precinct, same shift, partners for 3 years before Carlisle retired. So Cross called his old partner the night he died. At 10 p.m., 1 hour before the estimated time of death. Emily's pulse quickened. What did they talk about? We don't know. The call lasted 4 minutes, then Cross's phone went dark. Where's Carlisle now? That, Cade said, is the question. They brought Carlisle in the next morning. He showed up with a lawyer, relaxed and smiling like this was all a misunderstanding. Emily watched through the one-way glass as Cade and Maura sat across from him in the interrogation room. Mr. Carlisle, Cade began, you spoke with Daniel Cross on the night he died. What did you discuss? He called me, Carlisle said. Wanted to talk. Said he was going through a rough time. What did you tell him? I told him to hang in there, that it would pass. And then what? And then we hung up. That was it. That was it, Maura repeated. You didn't see him that night? No. You didn't go to his house? No. Then why, Cade said, sliding a photo across the table, was your car seen on his street at 10:30 p.m.? Carlisle's smile faltered. That's not my car. It's registered to you. I sold it. When? 2 months ago. To who? Some guy. Cash deal. I don't remember his name. Convenient. Carlisle's lawyer leaned forward. Unless you have evidence my client was at the scene, this is harassment. We're getting there, Maura said. She slid another photo across. This is from a traffic camera 2 blocks from Cross's house. Timestamp 10:34 p.m. That's your car. And that? She tapped a grainy image of a figure in the driver's seat. Looks a lot like you. Carlisle stared at the photo. Then he sat back and crossed his arms. I want to speak to my attorney. Alone. Cade and Maura left the room. Emily met them in the hallway. He was there. Yeah, Maura said. He was. So what now? Now we dig deeper. Find out what he did after he got there. Find out if Cross was already dead when he arrived, or if Carlisle made sure he would be. You think he killed him? I think, Cade said, that Carlisle being there the night Cross died is not a coincidence. And I think if we push hard enough, he'll crack. They pushed. For 3 days, they pulled everything, Carlisle's financials, his communications, his movements, and slowly, the picture came together. Carlisle had received a wire transfer of $25,000 3 days before Cross died. The source was a shell company registered in Delaware. The company's owner was hidden behind layers of paperwork, but the MCID's Financial Crimes Unit traced it back to an account connected to the Riverside Police Union's Legal Defense Fund. They paid him, Emily said, staring at the document spread across the conference table. Looks that way, Maura said. To do what? Kill Cross? Maybe. Or maybe just to make sure Cross didn't talk. Either way, Cross ends up dead, and the union's liability goes away. Emily sat back. So it wasn't suicide? No, Cade said. It wasn't. Then what was it? Cade pulled out the final piece. The toxicology report had come back with additional findings. Cross's blood showed traces of a sedative, one that wasn't prescribed to him and one that would have made him docile, compliant. Someone drugged him, Cade said. Got him drunk, put the gun in his hand, and made it look like he pulled the trigger. Emily felt the rage building in her chest. Who? We're still working on that, but my money's on Carlisle. 2 days later, Carlisle's lawyer called and said his client was ready to talk. They brought him back in. This time, he wasn't smiling. I didn't kill him, Carlisle said, but I was there. Keep talking, Cade said. Carlisle rubbed his face. Cross called me, said he needed help, said he was going to lose everything and he didn't know what to do. I went over to his place. We talked. I gave him a drink to calm him down. What was in the drink? Carlisle hesitated. Something to help him relax. A sedative. Yeah. Prescribed by who? It wasn't prescribed. I had it left over from a surgery a few years back. So you drugged him. I was trying to help. And then what? Carlisle's voice dropped. He was upset. Kept saying he couldn't go through with the trial. Kept saying it would destroy his family. I tried to talk him down, but he wasn't listening, and then he pulled out the gun. His gun. Yeah. And you let him? I tried to stop him, but he... Carlisle's voice broke. He pointed it at me, told me to leave, so I did. Maura leaned forward. You left a drugged, suicidal man alone with a loaded weapon. I didn't think, you didn't think, or you didn't care, Carlisle's lawyer interjected. My client is cooperating fully. He's admitted to being present, to providing the sedative, but not to any act of violence. But providing a sedative to someone in distress is an act of violence, Cade said, and leaving him to die makes you an accessory. Carlisle buried his face in his hands. Who paid you? Maura asked. Carlisle didn't answer. We already know about the $25,000. We know it came from the union. We just need you to confirm it. Carlisle looked up, eyes red. I can't. Why not? Because they'll kill me too. The room went silent. Cade leaned back. Then I guess you better hope we can protect you. Carlisle talked. He gave them names, dates, recordings of conversations he'd had with union officials, instructions he'd received. The $25,000 wasn't payment for murder. It was payment for cleanup. Carlisle was supposed to make sure Cross didn't testify, didn't cooperate, didn't expose the pattern. And when Cross became a liability instead of a problem they could manage, Carlisle was supposed to make sure he went away quietly. They wanted him to look unstable, Carlisle said, suicidal, so that when the trial fell apart, everyone would blame the pressure, blame the system, blame her. He looked at the mirror like he knew Emily was on the other side. Emily stood in the observation room, fists clenched, watching Carlisle unravel. Maura stepped out and closed the door behind her. You were right, she said quietly. This goes all the way up. How far? Union president, legal director. At least 3 senior officials. They orchestrated the whole thing. Are you arresting them? Tomorrow morning, simultaneous raids, federal charges, conspiracy, obstruction, accessory to manslaughter, maybe murder if we can prove they ordered the hit. Emily exhaled. And Cross's wife? Does she know? Not yet, but she will. Emily turned away from the glass. She called me a murderer. She didn't know the truth. She still might not believe it. Maura was quiet for a moment. Then she said, the truth doesn't always fix things, but it's better than the alternative. The raids happened at dawn. Emily watched the news from her apartment as federal agents swarmed the union headquarters, emerging hours later with boxes of documents and hard drives. By noon, 4 arrests had been made. By evening, the union president had resigned. And by the next morning, the story had shifted. Emily wasn't the villain anymore. She was the whistleblower, the survivor, the one who wouldn't back down even when the entire system turned against her. But the vindication felt hollow. Cross was still dead. His kids still didn't have a father. His wife was still a widow. And somewhere in the noise, Emily wondered if any of it had been worth it. Her phone buzzed, a text from Sarah Cross. Can we talk? Emily stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back. When? Now. I'm outside. Emily went to the window and looked down. Sarah was standing by a car. arms wrapped around herself, looking small and lost. Emily grabbed her keys and went downstairs. They stood facing each other on the sidewalk, neither speaking for a long moment. "I'm sorry," Sarah said finally. "For what I said. I didn't know." "You don't have to apologize." "Yes, I do." Sarah's eyes were red. "They lied to me. The union, the lawyer. They told me you were trying to destroy him, that you were lying, and I believed them because it was easier than—" Her voice broke. "Than admitting that the man I married wasn't who I thought he was." Emily didn't know what to say. "He did those things, didn't he?" Sarah asked. "The stops, the complaints, all of it." Emily nodded. Sarah wiped her eyes. "I keep thinking, if I'd known, if I'd seen it, could I have stopped it? Could I have saved him?" "No," Emily said quietly. "You couldn't have. None of us could have." "Then who's to blame?" Emily looked at her. "The people who enabled him. The system that protected him. The union that valued reputation over accountability. Not you, and not me." Sarah stared at the ground. "I don't know how to tell my kids their father wasn't a hero." "You tell them the truth. That he made mistakes, that he was human, and that what happened to him wasn't your fault." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. Then she did something Emily didn't expect. She reached out and hugged her. Emily stood there, stiff at first, then slowly put her arms around Sarah and held on. When they finally pulled apart, Sarah said, "Thank you for not giving up, for making them tell the truth." Emily watched her drive away, then went back inside. Her phone rang. "Jameson." "You see the news?" he asked. "Yeah." "How you holding up?" "I don't know yet." "Fair enough." He paused. "You did good, Hartman." "Did I?" "Yeah, you did." Emily hung up and sat on the couch. The apartment was quiet, empty. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she could breathe. But then her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "You think this is over?" "It's not. Watch your back." Emily stared at the message. Then she forwarded it to Maura and set the phone down. Somewhere out there, someone was still watching, still waiting. And Emily realized the fight wasn't finished yet. She forwarded the text to Maura and sat staring at her phone, waiting for a response that didn't come. The silence stretched for 10 minutes before she called directly. "I got it," Maura said without preamble. "We're tracing the number now." "How long?" "Give us an hour. Stay inside. Lock your doors." Emily did. She triple-checked the locks, closed the blinds, and sat on the couch with her service weapon, something she hadn't touched in years, within arm's reach. The apartment felt smaller with every passing minute. 43 minutes later, her phone rang. "We got a location," Maura said. The text was sent from a phone registered to Marcus Delray. Emily's mind went blank for a second. "Cross's lawyer?" "Yeah, we're bringing him in now." "Why would he threaten me?" "That's what we're about to find out." Emily heard the edge in Maura's voice, the kind that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. 2 hours later, she was back in the observation room at MCID headquarters, watching through the one-way glass as Delray sat across from Cade and Maura. He looked different without the polished courtroom veneer, rumpled suit, unshaven, eyes darting between the two agents like a cornered animal. "I didn't send that text," Delray said for the third time. "It came from your phone," Cade said. "My phone was stolen." "When?" "I don't know. Yesterday. Maybe the day before." Maura leaned forward. "You're a lawyer, Mr. Delray. You know how this looks." "I'm telling you the truth." "Then let's talk about something else," Cade interrupted. He slid a document across the table. "This is a financial disclosure form, required for all attorneys in federal cases. You filed it 3 weeks ago. According to this, you've received $200,000 in payments from the Riverside Police Union over the past 6 months. Delray's face went pale. "That's a lot of money for one case," Maura said, "unless there was more to it than just defending Cross." "I was his attorney." "You were his handler," Cade said. "You weren't there to defend him. You were there to make sure he stayed quiet, to make sure he didn't expose the people who'd been protecting him for years." That's not... We have recordings, Maura said. She pulled out her phone and hit play. Delray's voice came through the speaker, tinny but unmistakable. You can't tell them about the others. If you do, the whole thing falls apart. Stick to the script. It was one mistake, one bad stop, nothing more. Cross's voice followed, quieter, defeated. But it wasn't just one. It doesn't matter. You say it was. That's the only way this works. The recording ended. Delray sat frozen, staring at the phone. That conversation took place 4 days before Cross died, Cade said. You were coaching him to lie under oath, to cover up a pattern of abuse that you knew existed. I was doing my job. Your job, Morris said, voice cold, was to represent your client's best interests, not the union's, not the department's, his. I did. You got him killed. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Delray's hands started shaking. I didn't know they were going to... Going to what? Cade pressed. Going to have Carlyle stage his suicide? Going to make sure he couldn't testify? I didn't know about Carlyle. I swear. I just knew they wanted him to stay quiet, that's all. And when he couldn't? Maura asked. When he started talking about coming clean, about cooperating with the investigation? What did you do then? Delray's voice dropped to a whisper. I told them he was becoming a liability. Emily's hands curled into fists on the other side of the glass. Who did you tell him? Cade asked. The union's legal director, Roland Voss. And what did Voss say? Delray closed his eyes. He said he'd handle it. The room went silent. Morris stood up. Marcus Delray, you're under arrest for conspiracy to obstruct justice, accessory after the fact, and witness tampering. You have the right to remain silent. Wait, Delray said, voice cracking. Wait, I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything. Just, please. Maura paused. Everything? Everything. Names, dates, conversations, all of it. Cade and Maura exchanged a glance. Start talking, Cade said. Delray talked for 3 hours. He gave them a roadmap of corruption that stretched back a decade. Complaints buried, witnesses paid off, evidence destroyed. The Riverside Police Union hadn't just protected bad cops. They'd created a system where bad cops could thrive. And Roland Voss had been at the center of it all. By the time Delray finished, the sun had set and Emily's coffee had gone cold. She stepped out of the observation room and found Maura waiting in the hallway. You get all that? Maura asked. Yeah. We're moving on Voss tonight. Federal marshals are already in position. What about the rest of them? We're building cases. It'll take time, but they're done. All of them. Emily nodded slowly. What happens to Delray? He cooperates, he gets a deal. Reduced sentence, but he's still going to prison. Good. Maura studied her for a moment. How are you holding up? Emily thought about it. I don't know yet. Ask me in a week. Fair enough. They arrested Roland Voss at his home in front of his wife and teenage son. The footage made the evening news, federal agents leading him out in handcuffs, while reporters shouted questions he didn't answer. The fallout was immediate and total. The Riverside Police Union dissolved within 48 hours, its assets frozen pending investigation. The police chief resigned. Internal Affairs opened investigations into 73 officers flagged in Delray's testimony. The mayor called for a complete overhaul of the department's complaint system, and Emily's name was everywhere. Not as a villain this time, as the woman who'd refused to back down when the entire system told her to. As the veteran who'd stood up to power and won. Interview requests poured in. Book deals, speaking engagements. People wanted her story. Emily ignored all of it. She went back to work at Riverside General, slipping into the night shift like she'd never left. Her coworkers treated her differently now. Some with awe, some with awkward distance. Like they didn't know what to say to someone who'd become a symbol. Emily just wanted to be a nurse again. But the world had other plans. 3 weeks after Voss's arrest, Emily was restocking supply closets when her supervisor found her. There's someone here to see you, Karen said. I'm working. I know, but I think you'll want to take this. Emily followed her to the waiting room. Sitting in one of the plastic chairs was Sophia Ruiz, the first complainant who'd agreed to testify. Sophia stood when she saw Emily. "I'm sorry to bother you at work. I wanted to thank you." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Sophia's eyes were bright with tears. "I've spent 3 years thinking I was a coward, that I should have fought back. And then I watched you do what I couldn't, and I realized it wasn't my fault. None of it was my fault." Emily felt her throat tighten. "No, it wasn't. I'm testifying," Sophia said. "In all the cases they're building, I'm telling everything. That's brave." "No, what you did was brave. I'm just finally doing what I should have done 3 years ago." They stood there for a moment, two women who'd been failed by the same system, connected by the same fight. "Thank you," Sophia said quietly. Then she left. Emily stood in the waiting room long after she was gone, trying to hold herself together. Karen appeared beside her. "You okay?" "Yeah, I think so." "You know," Karen said carefully, "there's been talk about creating a patient advocacy position, someone to help people navigate complaints against medical staff, insurance denials, that kind of thing. Administration's been asking if you'd be interested." Emily looked at her. "Why me?" "Because you know how to fight a system, and you know what it's like to feel powerless inside one." Karen paused. "Think about it. No pressure, but the offer's there." Emily nodded, and Karen walked away. The idea sat with her through the rest of her shift. By the time she clocked out at dawn, she'd made a decision. She called Maura from the parking lot. "I need access to the complaint records," Emily said. "All of them. Every case that was dismissed or buried over the last 10 years. "What are you planning?" "I'm planning to make sure this never happens again." Maura was quiet for a moment, then, "I'll see what I can do." The trials started in the spring. Carlisle went first. The evidence against him was overwhelming: the burner phone, the financial records, his own confession. The jury convicted him in 4 hours. Accessory to manslaughter, obstruction of justice, conspiracy. 23 years. Delray pled out. 15 years with eligibility for parole after 8. Roland Voss went to trial and fought every inch of the way. His defense team argued he'd been doing his job, protecting his members, operating within the bounds of union obligations. The prosecution brought Emily to the stand. She testified for 6 hours over 2 days. She walked the jury through the stop, the humiliation, the investigation. She told them about the threats, the harassment, the night she'd received the call from Sarah Cross. And then the prosecutor asked the question that mattered. "Ms. Hartman, why didn't you just drop the complaint? Why didn't you walk away when it got hard?" Emily looked at the jury, 12 faces staring back at her, waiting. "Because someone had to," she said. "Because if I didn't, the next person cross-stopped wouldn't either, and the person after that, and eventually everyone would just accept that this is how things are, that power protects power and the rest of us don't matter. And do you think you matter?" Emily's voice was steady. "I think we all do. That's the whole point." The jury convicted Voss on all counts. 32 years. When the verdict was read, Emily was sitting in the gallery next to Sophia, who squeezed her hand so hard it hurt. Outside the courthouse, reporters mobbed Emily asking for a statement. She stopped on the steps and looked at the cameras. "I'm not a hero," she said. "I'm just someone who refused to be silenced, and the real story here isn't about me. It's about the system that tried to silence me and the people who finally held it accountable." "Do you have any message for other victims?" a reporter called out. Emily paused. "Yeah, don't give up. Don't let them make you feel small. Don't let them convince you that power is permanent. It's not. The truth is stronger, and you're stronger than you think." She walked away before they could ask anything else. Jameson was waiting by his car at the edge of the parking lot. He'd flown in for the verdict just to be there. "Proud of you, Hartman," he said. "Thanks. You gonna be okay?" "I think so." "Good." He paused. "You know, there's a position opening up, advocacy work for veterans' rights. They're looking for someone with experience navigating the system, someone who knows how to fight." Emily looked at him. "You offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a purpose, if you want it." Emily thought about Karen's offer, about the hospital, about the people who needed someone to stand between them and the machinery that ground people down. "I'll think about it," she said. "Don't think too long." That night, Emily sat at her kitchen table with two folders in front of her. One was the job offer from Jameson's organization, national reach, policy work, systemic change. The other was information Karen had sent her about the hospital advocacy position, local, individual cases, one person at a time. She stared at them both for a long time. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Hello? Ms. Hartman?" A woman's voice, young, scared. "My name is Jessica Tron. I was pulled over 3 months ago. The officer, he said things, did things. I tried to report it, but they told me there was no evidence, that it would be my word against his. I saw you on the news and I thought, maybe you could help." Emily grabbed a pen. "Tell me what happened." As Jessica talked, Emily started taking notes. Another name, another story, another person who deserved to be heard. When the call ended, Emily looked at the two folders again. Then she pulled out her laptop and started writing an email. 6 months later, Emily stood in front of a community center in South Riverside, looking at the sign above the door, Hartman Advocacy Center. When the system fails, we fight back. It wasn't fancy. Just 3 rooms in a building that used to be a dry cleaner, but it was hers. Inside, Sophia was setting up chairs for the evening's information session. 2 other former complainants, people who'd testified in the trials, were organizing files and answering phones. "You ready for this?" Sophia asked. Emily looked around the space, at the people who'd come together because they'd all been failed by the same system. People who'd decided that instead of staying broken, they'd help fix what broke them. "Yeah," Emily said. "I'm ready." The session started at 7. 32 people showed up, victims of police misconduct, medical malpractice, housing discrimination, workplace harassment. People who'd been told their complaints didn't matter. People who'd been dismissed, ignored, buried. Emily stood in front of them and told her story. Not the sanitized version the media wanted, but the real one. Messy, painful, full of moments where she'd wanted to quit. "I'm not telling you this because I'm special," she said. "I'm telling you this because I'm not. I'm just someone who got tired of being told to sit down and be quiet. And if I can stand up, so can you." A man in the back raised his hand. "But you had resources, federal agents, lawyers. Most of us don't have that." "You're right," Emily said. "I did. And that's why I'm here, to be that resource for people who don't have it, to help you build cases, to connect you with attorneys, to make sure you're not fighting alone." "Why?" a woman asked. "Why do this? You already won. You could walk away." Emily thought about Cross, about Sarah, about the 7 people who'd given up before her, and the hundreds who'd probably given up before them. "Because winning isn't enough," she said. "Not if it only happens once. Not if the next person who gets pulled over or harassed or violated has to start from scratch. We need to build something that lasts, something that makes it harder for the system to fail people. That's why." The applause started slowly, then built. After the session, a young woman approached Emily. She was maybe 25, wearing a jacket with military patches, leaning on a cane. "I was pulled over last month," the woman said quietly. "The cop said my disability placard was fake, said I didn't look disabled. I filed a complaint, but everyone told me to drop it." Emily looked at her. "Are you going to?" The woman met her eyes. "No." Emily smiled. "Good. Let me get your information. We'll start building your case tomorrow." As Emily took down her details, she felt something shift. Not relief, not closure, but purpose. This was what came after the fight. This was what you built with the pieces. Over the next year, the Hartman Advocacy Center handled 63 cases. They won 41. The others were still pending. Emily worked 18-hour days, fueled by coffee and the knowledge that every case mattered. Every person deserved to be heard. She also testified before the city council 3 times, pushing for reforms. Independent oversight boards, mandatory body cameras with civilian review, stronger protections for whistleblowers and complainants. Some of the reforms passed, others didn't. But the conversation had changed. People were paying attention now. The anniversary of Cross's death came quietly. Emily stood at his grave early in the morning before the media could show up. The headstone was simple. His name, his dates, the words loving father and husband. Nothing about being a police officer. Emily stood there for a long time, trying to find the right words. Finally, she said them out loud. I didn't want this. I didn't want you dead. I just wanted to be treated like a human being. The wind rustled through the trees. I hope wherever you are, you understand that. And I hope you know that what happened to you, it meant something. It changed things. Not enough, but something. She turned and walked back to her car. Sarah Cross was standing by the entrance to the cemetery. They'd talked a few times since the trial. Careful conversations, painful ones. I saw your car, Sarah said. Emily nodded. Thank you, Sarah said, for coming. I'm not sure why I did. I am. Sarah looked toward the grave. You're the only person who sees him as a whole person, not a monster, not a martyr, just someone who made choices and paid for them. Is that how you see him? I'm trying to. Sarah wiped her eyes. The kids ask about him sometimes. I tell them he made mistakes, that he wasn't perfect, but that I loved him anyway. That's fair? Is it enough? I don't know, Emily said honestly, but it's more than most people get. They stood together in the quiet, two women bound by tragedy and truth. I'm glad you didn't give up, Sarah said finally. Me too. Sarah hesitated, then said, I'm testifying. In one of the civil cases against the department, they asked me to talk about the pressure Daniel was under, about what the union told him to do. I'm going to tell the truth. Emily looked at her. That's going to be hard. Yeah, but you did it. So can I. They parted ways and Emily drove to the center. There was a staff meeting at 10, 3 client consultations in the afternoon, and a community forum in the evening. Her leg ached. Her hands trembled. Her body reminded her every day that she'd been broken once. But she kept moving anyway. At the staff meeting, Sophia brought up a new case. Woman in her 60s, veteran, got pulled over for a broken taillight. Officer ran her plates, saw she had a medical marijuana card, made her get out of the car. She has MS. She couldn't stand without her walker. He arrested her for obstruction when she tried to explain. Emily's jaw tightened. Where is she now? Charges were dropped, but she wants to file a complaint. She's scared. Tell her we'll take the case, and tell her she's not alone. The consultations that afternoon were brutal. A man who'd been beaten by police during a mental health crisis. A woman who'd been sexually harassed by her supervisor and fired when she reported it. A teenager who'd been expelled from school for defending himself against bullying. Every story was different. Every story was the same. People being failed by systems that were supposed to protect them. By the time Emily got home that night, she was exhausted. But there was a package waiting on her doorstep. Inside was a letter from a woman in Oregon. She'd read about Emily's story and wanted to share her own. She'd been assaulted by a police officer 12 years ago and never reported it because she didn't think anyone would believe her. But now, she wrote, she was ready to come forward, and she wanted Emily's help. Emily sat down and wrote back immediately. The work never stopped. The cases kept coming. The system kept failing people. But Emily kept fighting. 6 months later, she stood in front of the Riverside City Council chambers, waiting to testify on a proposed reform package. The room was packed, supporters on one side, police union members on the other. When Emily's name was called, she walked to the microphone. My name is Emily Hartman, she said. A year and a half ago, I was pulled over by Officer Daniel Cross. What happened that night set off a chain of events that exposed systemic corruption, resulted in multiple convictions, and changed my life forever. She paused, looking at the council members. But I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future. About making sure what happened to me, and to the 7 people before me and the hundreds before them, doesn't keep happening. She outlined the reforms: independent review boards with subpoena power, mandatory reporting of all complaints, prohibition on union interference in investigations, protection for whistleblowers, These reforms won't fix everything, Emily said, but they'll make it harder for the system to protect abusers, and they'll make it easier for victims to be heard. That's all we're asking for, to be heard. The vote was close, 4-3. The reforms passed. Outside, reporters surrounded Emily. How does it feel to win? One asked. Emily thought about it. It doesn't feel like winning, it feels like the start of something. Like maybe we're finally building a system that works for everyone, not just the people in power. What's next for you? More of the same. There are still cases to fight, still people who need help, still work to do. Do you ever regret not walking away? When you had the chance? Emily looked directly at the camera. No, because if I had, nothing would have changed. The system would still be broken, and the next person who got hurt would have no one to turn to. I couldn't live with that. She walked away from the cameras and found Jameson waiting by his car. Hell of a thing you've built, he said. It's not done yet. It never will be, but that's the point, isn't it? Emily smiled. Yeah, I guess it is. Jameson handed her an envelope. Offer still stands. National advocacy, bigger platform, more resources. Emily looked at the envelope, then at the center across the street where Sophia was locking up for the night. I appreciate it, Emily said, but I'm where I need to be. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Jameson nodded. Then keep doing what you're doing. The world needs more people like you. The world needs more people who refuse to be silent. I'm just one of them. 2 years after the night she was pulled over, Emily sat in her office at the center, looking at the wall of photos. Every person they'd helped, every case they'd won. It wasn't everyone. They'd lost cases too. The system was still broken in 1,000 ways, but it was better than it had been. Her phone rang. Unknown number, she answered. Ms. Hartman, my name is David Park. I was pulled over 6 months ago by an officer in Riverside. I filed a complaint, but no one's gotten back to me. I saw your interview and I thought, maybe you could help. Emily grabbed a pen. Tell me what happened. As David talked, Emily started taking notes. Another name, another story, another person who deserved to be heard. When the call ended, she added his information to the growing list and looked out the window at the city lights stretching into the distance. Somewhere out there, someone else was being pulled over. Someone else was being dismissed. Someone else was wondering if their voice mattered. And because of what Emily had built, they'd have an answer. It did. They all did. Emily Hartman, nurse, veteran, survivor, advocate, stood in her office and looked at the work waiting for her. Tomorrow, she'd start on David's case. Tomorrow, she'd keep fighting. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, she let herself feel what she'd accomplished. She'd been dismissed, humiliated, broken down by a system designed to protect the powerful and silence the vulnerable. But she'd refused to stay silent. She'd stood up when it would have been easier to sit down. She'd spoken when it would have been safer to stay quiet. She'd fought when everyone told her to give up. And she'd won, not just for herself, for everyone who came after. The system hadn't wanted to change, but she'd forced it to anyway. One case at a time, one person at a time, one voice at a time. And that, Emily realized, was the whole point. You didn't change the world all at once. You changed it piece by piece, person by person, until enough people stood up that the system had no choice but to listen. She'd been one voice. Now she was building a chorus, and the song they were singing was simple. We matter. We will be heard. We will not be silenced. Emily turned off the lights in her office and locked the door behind her. The fight wasn't over. It would never be over. But she was ready for it. Because she'd learned the most important lesson of all. The system only wins when good people give up. And Emily Hartman was done giving up. She walked to her car, got in, and drove home through the quiet streets of Riverside. The city looked different now. Not perfect, not fixed, but better. And that was enough. For tonight, it was enough. Tomorrow she'd fight for more. But tonight she'd rest. Because the war against injustice was long. And she was in it for the duration.